What would you do for a Klondike bar? What would you do? That's the question. What's up, everybody? I'm Jason Line. Thank you guys for joining in. Give me a moment while I blast this really loud because I didn't turn it down in the first place. There we go. And I share this out. If you guys want to share this out, I would greatly appreciate that. If you guys don't want to, that's fine. Just stay put. Wait while others contribute to this great society that we have. And you just reap the benefits of it. Hope you guys are doing well. It's Tuesday night. Tuesday night's always a great night. Always a great night of the week. Why is that? Because you got me, Mr. Marco, the Bearded Truth, coming live at you guys 7 p.m. Eastern. As normal. You would screw a bear? Oh, wow. Going for the Bears, right? That's a little excessive. Going straight for the bear. Ooh, that is an intense decision. All right. Got one more share to go, and then we'll be right as rain, heading up the storm and casting a flurry of words and ideas that you've never experienced before. It'll be a good time. So thank you guys for sharing it out if you guys have already. If you guys haven't, just keep sitting by. It's fine. It's all right. If the interwebs would go a little bit quicker for me, it would be appreciated. But of course, the interwebs is an inanimate object and doesn't care about my feelings. So, topics we're going to be covering tonight. We're going to, of course, hit the Gillette, right? We got to hit the Gillette. We'll hit the hamburgers. We'll hit the good old Clemson Tigers winning the national championship. So, you know, being from South Carolina, I got to hit that. Big lag. I can't read that. I apologize if I misread that. It would be because everything's going slow. J-Dub, what's up? Hey, J-Dub, if you wouldn't mind throwing this out and, well, actually, I got it now. I finally got it. There we go. All right. So we're going to be talking about the Gillette. We'll talk about the government shutdown. We're going to talk about Spain's government shutdown. Have you guys known that it's been going on for effectively 10 years? So we'll talk a little bit about that. Well, this was from 2016, nonetheless, but for 10 years, we'll talk about a little bit about their government shutdown. We're going to talk about Northern California had a judge ruling in favor of the people, in favor of the Fifth, and in favor of the Fourth. So we're going to talk about that, and it involves your cell phones and the police officers. Always a good time to know about those things. We're going to talk about... We'll bring back and we'll talk a little bit more about Steve King. And, of course, the big news of the day, we're going to talk about William Barr and his situation. Lots of, looks like a karate video. But, so we'll cover quite a few topics tonight. I hope you guys are going to be enjoying this. I pulled up this article and I didn't even check it out. There it is. Oh, Zach Ford. That's right. We'll talk a little bit about this Zach Ford case, which was he was saying that, you know, a woman who defended herself against a man who was threatening her with a gun should have let the man rob her as opposed to shooting him dead, right? Your protection, your safety, your sovereignty. Yeah, just let them take what they want and you go ahead and live on life. So we'll talk on the Zach Ford case situation. He has since then deleted the tweet. And it's a good thing that he did. But nonetheless, he's still, for making that case, certainly he deserves some blowback. Thankfully, he has deleted the tweet and issued a lengthy apology. And has talked about the rhetoric. So it's a good thing there. Are you guys still chopping it up? Is it still pretty brutal on your end? I can go and see if I can cut down some internet usage over on my side of things. Looking better? I'm assuming by the hearts being in rapid succession that we're doing a little bit better. But nonetheless, let's get started. So, thank you guys all for joining in tonight. I am Mr. Marco, the Bearded Truth. Jason Line, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, normal time. We go live. Going to be sticking around for probably a little more than an hour tonight. It's going to be a little bit of an extended show, just because we have a lot to cover. A lot to cover. I want to first start off, right? We're day 25, day 26 of the government shutdown. Things are showing up to not be nearly as drastic as what a lot of people thought it would be. It's affecting a lot of people in obvious catastrophic ways if you are an employee of the federal government. And I apologize to you. I don't really feel too much sympathy. You work for an organization that fails to maintain its doors open year in and year out. We had 3 shutdowns during Obama. We've now had 2 shutdowns under Trump. It's to be expected now. You got to accept that it's going to continue on in that way. And so with this government shutdown, right, we're learning the true nature of some of the police. So I actually have a good friend, Brent DeRitter. I hope he doesn't mind that I just name dropped him. But he's a good friend. He runs actually a libertarian crisis donation center. And so whenever there's a crisis that goes on, right, when Hurricane Harvey hit, he banded up a bunch of his buddies and they went down and they were helping rebuild. They were helping bring food, bring water, and just generally help out in the same way that you would expect the government to step up and do. Well, now that we have the government shutdown, one of the events that he's been doing along with a lot of other libertarian groups is they're actually going out to the public parks, to the national parks and to the federal parks, all the parks that have been shut down and no longer have the government cleaning them up and taking care of them. And libertarian organizations are actually setting up days of events and going out and cleaning these up. Well, what was it? I think it was on Sunday or Saturday. One of the events Brent DeRitter went to, and the police officer said, "You are not allowed to come here if you plan on cleaning. You cannot come onto these grounds if you plan on cleaning. So get rid of your bags, get rid of anything that you're going to utilize to pick these things up. And if you want to go and traverse through, if you want to go walk around and enjoy the area, you're free to do that, but you are not allowed to clean up these areas." And it really shows this at the core of the government or the state, whoever it is, they want to have a monopoly on the goodwill, of the compassion, of the caring. And even when we try to step up and take over and show that we are adults, we can do as we want, the state stands in that way, and it's just atrocious. That was not a planned discussion point, but it's still worth it to bring up, because anytime we can see the good virtues of people and it's being discouraged by the state, you should put a question in your head. Is this truly an entity that we should respect and love if they're going to stop the goodwill of others? Gun control has been a big topic as of late, and I want to just throw this other sidebar topic in there. A lot of people are seeing gun control bills being thrown around this country right now, right? In California, we have Dianne Feinstein advocating for a ban of 205 firearms by name to be banned, as well as detachable magazines, foregrips, pistol grips, yada, yada, yada. Whatever it is that can go on a rifle, she wants to get those things banned and everything else. Obviously, atrocious law, not in accordance with the Second Amendment, but she's advocating for it. In Oregon, you have a law that's being thrown out there, increase the wait times before you can purchase a weapon. And then also the most egregious part is that you can only buy magazines that have a 5-round capacity. That's right, 5 rounds. And to make matters worse, you're only allowed to buy 20 rounds every 30 days. Every 30 days, you're allowed 20 rounds. So every 3 days, you can shoot 2 rounds in accordance with this law. These laws have not been passed. I hope that they would never be passed, but it really speaks to the idea that the government is trying to stand in your way of being able to practice or exercise your Second Amendment rights. And there is a man over in France right now who is a yellow vest. If you guys haven't heard the news, that the military over there, the police force over in France, as ordered by Macron himself, are now carrying semi-automatic rifles to these protests, and they are opening fire. There was an individual that was shot in the back of the head and now is suffering from brain damage. He has survived, but nonetheless, this is the exact reason, this is the exact notion that pro-Second Amendment people say this is why the Second Amendment was there. Because the government is going to show up in force and show up with numbers and with guns. Then you should be able to show up in numbers, show up in force, and show up with guns. Because we are the keepers of the government. The government are not our keepers. And so, just the quick sidebar of that. It's just so crucial that we understand the absolute nuance of what the Second Amendment is about. It is not just about protecting yourself from people that are breaking into your house, from people that want to rape you, that people that want to hurt your children, that hurt your wife, hurt your husband, hurt your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your parents, your dog, whoever it is. It's not just to protect your property, but it's also to protect your sovereignty from your government, to protect yourself from a tyrannical government such as what the French police are now propping up and protecting. So a lot of egregious things are going on right now, and I hope that you guys are able to really take in all of this information and just accept it and love it, because there's a lot of atrocious things going on right now. It really needs to be handled. So, getting into the big news of today, William Barr has his confirmation hearing today. A lot of people are really spun up by this part and that part, and I want you guys to push down on the emotions a little bit. He's going to say, he said things that went against the MAGA movement. He said things that went against conservatism. He said things that went against the Democrats. He said things that went against literally every ideology out there, right? He's still kind of weak he's still weak, not kind of. He's still weak on the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, on even the Eighth Amendment. But he's also weak on the Second Amendment. He's weak on the annulment clause. He's just weak in a lot of areas, and that's going to cause a lot of outrage. But you have to understand that he's also trying to play some theater there as well. And so if you guys go to 3 hours and 48 minutes of the testimony, you'll see that he was having an interaction with Senator Blumenthal, and this got a lot of people in the MAGA movement really outraged, because he basically said, look, I'm not jumping in on the lock her up crowd. He doesn't want to be involved with that. And on face value on that, I can agree with that. You shouldn't just be on the movement, I want to find the justifications in order to lock somebody up. The other part that added into this that made it even more repulsive was the fact that he was like, look, if they're not in power, we don't just go after political opponents. And so I hope that he was just butchering the way that he was speaking, because he was not very, very eloquent with the way that he spoke on really any of his answers, despite the fact that some senator says that he was. But I would hope that when he says, I don't want to go after people just because they're political opponents, I would hope that what he meant was, if they committed a crime, you go after them for the crimes that they committed. It doesn't matter if you're a political person. It doesn't matter if you're a higher echelon or if you're in the low swings of things. It doesn't matter where you are. If somebody like William Barr, who advocates for law and order, somebody who advocates that all laws must be adhered to and all laws must be prosecuted, right? He said this very early on during his testimony. Then I would hope that he would say at the end of this that, yes, if Hillary Clinton committed crimes, we go after her. If Donald Trump committed crimes, we go after him. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter your political affiliations. We're not going after you for political parties. We're not going after you for political aggressions. We're going after you because you aggressed against the law. You broke the law, and that would be it. This would be the proper scope of what any attorney general should be doing. Now, if he has a problem with a law, right, and he did mention some of the laws that he may have some disagreements with, if he has a problem with a law, certainly bring that law up and say, Congress, you need to fix this. I have to abide by this. I hate this law. This law is unconstitutional. This law is unethical. This law is whatever it is. And you go after that law and you make the proper changes. You advocate for the proper changes, and instead of instead of just doing what he basically is effectively saying, and that is, I'm going to pick and choose the targets of these laws. So if you are somebody that is high up in politics, you kind of get a pass. Isn't that scary? Isn't that exactly what the people have been advocating against? That regardless of how high up you are held accountable for your actions? That is what's needed. That is what's needed in our two-tier system here in America, where the general population is held to one standard and the rest and the political class is held to another. It is disgusting, and it needs to be changed, and I don't think that William Barr is going to be a good advocate for that change. I think he's just going to be just the status quo and continuing to advocate for it. He also, some things that a lot of people didn't like was the fact that he has been Robert Mueller. He's been a good friend of Robert Mueller for 30 years. And Robert Mueller went to 2 of his daughter's weddings. So there's some familiarity there. There's some friendship ties there. And that's certainly a reason to have some concerns with it. But we would hope that he would be impartial and he would have integrity on these things and stand up for the right thing. If Robert Mueller's on the right trail, then let Robert Mueller keep going. If he gets into the DOJ and he sees Robert Mueller just running off onto an absolute witch hunt, then I would hope that he would stand up for the right thing and stand up for the right cause. It's overall, I don't have high standards for what to expect from him. I really don't. The saddest thing is that we have to have this discussion. Yeah, it is kind of sad, right? The ruling class should not be held to strict standards. Why? That's his words. I think that they should be held to the same standards. Integrity in government. I know, I'm asking for too much, right? I'm asking for way too much. But that was a good article from Boogie. I might read that if we got time. Boogie sent me a good article from the American Thinker. I might go through this. Right? It's a little blog. It's got some good information on it. I haven't really opened and went through it all, but because there's a lot of extra sources in here, and they certainly need to be checked out. But we will, if we got time, we'll go through that. All right, that sound good? I expect him to be temporary. Yes, with the status quo of President Trump, he would be temporary in a lot of ways. We don't really know what the purpose of William Barr would be, right? Going back all the way back to Rex Tillerson, when Rex Tillerson got thrown out, I had the idea that he was there for a purpose, right? And once your purpose is over, once you are done with your expected job, then you get removed, you get canned, and they move on to the next one. Not to mention that if Trump leaves office, obviously he'd be temporary in that with that regards as well. So I want to go over and transition back to Northern California. This is not the right article. That's the right article. There we go. That one was going to Florida. So from California, I'm just going to read this article. This is from Gizmodo. A federal judge in California has ruled that law enforcement cannot compel a suspect to unlock their phone with a fingerprint or facial recognition, combined with the previous court ruling that held police cannot force a suspect to tell them their password. We're getting some clarity on the future of search and seizure in the United States. So it's this decision is being predicated on the Fourth and the Fifth Amendment, and it's a beautiful one. It's the correct one. And so when we look at this entire discussion, right? So we all understand that you have a cell phone. Many phones have the biometrics, right? You can use your fingerprint, you can use your face, you can use your eye. You can use a lot of different ways in order to unlock your device. Oh, I don't plan on actually traveling there, but nonetheless. And so if you have those things, then the expectation or the desire from the police officers would be that if they want to get into your phone, so say for this case specifically, they were They thought that they had information. There was 2 suspects in an area, and the officers try to go in and start taking everyone's phones, forcing them to unlock them, so that they could find the information that they needed to go through the process that they needed. And the ruling was no, stop that. So we understand the desire for the police to want to be able to get into anything and everything in order to do their investigations. Of course, that's the role that they want to do. They want to expand out and do as much as they want to. But the issue is that you still have your individual rights and liberties bestowed upon you by your creator, and that shall not be infringed. Or not shall not be infringed. Should not be infringed, but they're infringed pretty readily. And so if the police officer has your phone and your phone is locked, right, and they want to unlock it, and it's like, hey, show your face. They can't just grab your face and go, hey, here you go, like, and unlock your phone. That would be unconstitutional in accordance with this ruling. We'll see if it goes up to the Supreme Court, but nonetheless, it's the right decision. The way that this would go against your Fifth Amendment. So let's say you took a picture. Let's say you have information on your phone and the police officer wants to get into your phone. Because it is because it is your property, because it is your things, right? By them opening it up and getting into that, first off, it would not, you have an expectation of privacy for your papers, property, and effects, which, it's your property. But it would also be that it would be effectively making you, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-incriminate yourself, right? You'd be incriminating yourself. And so here's a good quote. If a person cannot be compelled to provide a passcode because it's a testimonial communication, a person cannot be compelled to provide one's finger, thumb, iris, face, or other biometric feature to unlock the same device. And this is Judge Candace Westmore, in her opinion. So absolutely the 100% right decision on that. I would love to see this continue. I would love to see this fight against the idea that the Fourth Amendment somehow becomes malleable and as technology grows, right, the state somehow grows in its ability to collect this information. In this article, they do mention something that we've harped on quite a bit here on the show, and that is the Kavanaugh expansion of government intervention and being able to collect cell phone metadata. And so that was one thing that they had actually brought up that would be challenging this information. I'm hoping that this precedent would be challenged and be brought up to the Supreme Court and let it be set the standard. And that's all that we can hope for. And a good analogy, and this is when I shared this on Facebook, right? If you guys haven't found me on Facebook, Jason Lyon, find me on there. You'll see all my stuff. It is my personal page. I don't post very much personal stuff, but I shared it and I said, look, if a police officer wants to go into my house, you can go into my house as soon as you have a warrant. You want to go into my phone? Same deal. You need to have a warrant explaining where you're going to go, what you're going to do, how you're going to look at this stuff, because you're not going to get it not without a warrant. And it better be signed with an oath or affirmation. Come on now. And it's so important. It's so important when cases like this come up that people get this shared out, that you understand what your rights are, what the decisions of others have been made, so that you can protect yourself in the same way. Now, if I'm actually going to be moving on to changing up my security on my device. Normally, it's just a swipe. I don't even have a code. I don't have anything. I'm actually thinking about putting a pin on my phone, because if an officer tells me to unlock my phone, I'm gonna type it in incorrectly like 3 times, 5 times, or whatever it is. Wipe the phone. I'll be like, hey, whatever you wanted on there, it's gone. Doesn't matter. I don't have anything to hide on there. It's just on principle. It really is, because it's if you want to go through the correct ways of getting my stuff, then we can talk about it. But if you're just gonna try to bully me or try to show your authority over one person over another, you can walk through that door and you can get hit where you split. It's fine. So that was a good court case, good decision made there. Westmore also continuing on this deemed the warrant for this one would be overbroad because it identifies. So for the specific one, let me read this. The case Westmore was reviewing involved a request for a search warrant targeting property in Oakland. Police officers were investigating an extortion case involving two individuals suspected of using Facebook Messenger to threaten a third party with a leak of an embarrassing video if they did not pay a fee. Extortion. Officers wanted to search a location where they believed the suspects were present and unlock the digital devices belonging to anyone discovered at the scene. Westmore denied the warrant. Westmore denied the warrant application to be overbroad because it identifies two subjects and goes on to ask for authorization to force anyone found at the location to unlock their devices. She found that the officers had probable cause to search the premises, but not to go rooting through the devices of anyone found on site while they were performing the search. The judge said that the application could be resubmitted only targeting the two suspects and any devices belonging to them, or any devices believed to belonging to them. So yes, that's the exact scope that I was talking to you guys about with the warrant. It has to be finite. It cannot be unlimited. Scopes are very important, and they are absolutely 100% constitutional. While we're talking about a little bit of police overreach, we'll take it back all the way back over here to Florida, to my southern brothers, if you will, in Vero Beach, Florida. The article starts off like this. This is from Free Thought Project, and I'm glad that they picked this one up. Stalking is defined as criminal activity consisting of the repeated following and harassing of another person. Stalking is a distinctive form of criminal activity composed of a series of actions that, taken individual, might constitute legal behavior, like writing notes or sending flowers. However, when they are compounded to instill fear or intimidation, these actions become illegal. Because of anti-stalking laws, people who are victims of stalking are told to call the police. But what happens when the stalkers are the police? An Indian River countryman is finding out how tough it can be to get the justice as a victim of stalking because his stalkers are the cops. This innocent man, who we will refer to as Smokey, has committed no crime, had harmed no one, yet still became the victim of police stalking. In August of last year, he had multiple officers show up to his home when he was at work. Having been burglarized the week prior, Smokey had installed video cameras on his home which captured the most unscrupulous actions of Vero Beach police officers. When police showed up, he was at work, and then he got a call from his neighbors to alert him that the fact that the police were at his home, so he hurried home. When he arrived 45 minutes later, he noticed that his video camera on his front porch had been disabled. So I'm not going to read the entire article, but the main part of this, right? So he was burglarized. He got security cameras. Multiple officers showed up to the house. They basically said that they thought somebody was inside that was a felon, and they were coming to arrest him. So they disabled his security cameras for their protection, and so they could justifiably disrupt, mangle, or damage the property of a citizen for their protection. Now, they left it not functioning. They left it in the condition that they made it, and didn't notify him, didn't tell him anything. And it was 3 officers, and there were screenshots of this. Now, that would not in itself constitute a stalking. But what they did see was days later, or over the next couple of days, police cruisers would pull up into his driveway. They would pull up next to his house. They were continually staying around his house as if something was astray, as if somebody was going to come right back to his house, despite the fact that he did not want this. He did not ask for this. It's just, who do you call? Who do you call when the people that are going after you, that are stalking you, that are intimidating you, are the people that you're told to call when that's happening? As far as I know, Smokey is still alive. As a result of this, many people So he posted these videos, and he tried to reach out. Free Thought Project actually picked up the story and been providing it out, and they provided the video to the police chief, who was unaware of some of these interactions, was just saying that the police were acting in accordance with their own safety. And since it became published, there was a huge backlash on Facebook and on other rating sites in which their ratings were dropping drastically, as well as after their ratings had started to drop. So they've got pictures of a 4.1 rating originally, a 3.6 rating, 3.6 star rating with 26 1 stars, and then they changed it to where now they have a 4.1. Every number is the same with the exception of number 1. So it went from 26 1 stars to 15 1 stars. So they removed a bunch of them. Kind of not good. And they even mentioned the screen grab on the left was taken the night before the one on the right. So they specify it was one day in between. It's just truly disgusting. I will tweet this one out right now. So if you guys want to actually see the article, if you want to see the videos, it is there on the Twitter page. If you guys ever have anything that you guys want shared, right? This was one that was given to me by a viewer or a follower from Facebook World. But nonetheless, if you guys have articles or videos you guys want to see discussed, feel free to drop it. Send it my way, and I will happily take it up and share it out. Because there's just monumental issues with all of this stuff, right? So I want to swing back to the government. The government shutdown right now, right? It's been a big problem. And the Clemson Tigers, the people about an hour away from me, right? Not far at all. Just won the national championships. They ran over the Roll Tide. They decimated them in that national championship. And so they went to the White House. And President Trump, knowing that the kitchen staff wasn't available, he took it out of his own pocket and bought them an extravagant meal, if you will, right? He went to Wendy's, he went to McDonald's, he went to Burger King, he went to a bunch of fast food places. And there's of course, with President Trump and the media and the trends that have been set, there had to be a controversy when it involved food. And certainly this was the same as always. President Trump bought the burgers. He put on Twitter. He put it on Twitter that he had bought like 1,000 hamberders. So obviously, anytime President Trump misspells something, right, the media's got to jump on that and lash about it. So that's, of course, the notion of or the basis behind my misspelling, of course, as well. And at the idea that he bought a bunch of fast food burgers for a bunch of football players, just made people just disgusted. They were repulsed by the idea that the president of the United States would buy these guys fast food. And there were some players that came out and they said, "Look, I had a good time. I enjoyed it. It was good. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the food. We're not here to have like great food or whatever. We're here to have, for the experience, effectively." So he was the host that he was. It was President Trump in the flesh, and people got to enjoy that. And the media just made a huge hubbub about it all. It's so insipid whenever these are the things that people are worried about, that they're angry about, that they're ecstatic about it. It's like, can we not have bigger valued conversations? Of course not. We're stuck in 2019, guys. We're stuck in 2019. These are the highlight days. These are the days that you're going to remember, the hamberders. Because those governments did not shut down. So, props to Clemson Tigers for winning the national championship. I kind of wish Roll Tide would have won. My best friend, he's a Roll Tide kind of guy. But it is what it is. They won. They went up there. They had a good time. I'm glad that everyone involved was happy. I'm glad that the rest of the nation is outraged. Be outraged over stupid things. Keep doing what you're doing. Not a problem. You won't hear me complain too long about that. I do want to go to this article that I promised you guys from the beginning, and that was from Spain. So this article was from October 27th, 2016. So it was a little ways away, but this was from Forbes, so it's a reputable economic source. So the title of this: Spain has no government for 10 months. Economy grows, unemployment falls. Right? It's beautiful. Beautiful. I think I said 10 years earlier. I apologize if I said 10 years. If I didn't, I'm glad that we're continuing on with life. So it starts off, we are continually told that every country has to have an activist government. This is the Keynesian argument. This is not the Austrian argument. This is the Keynesian, the lefties, the Democrats that say you have to have taxation in order to have a higher flow of money. No, you don't. No economy nor society can be allowed to just bumble along by itself. The firm smack of political control is necessary for the world to continue to turn on its axis. This is not really what the empirical evidence tells us, of course. Spain has not really had a government for the past 10 months, and yet is expected to be one of the fastest growing Eurozone economies of this year. And as a result, the unemployment rate had just fallen to 18.9%. So much for the necessity of activist management of the economy. So here's a quote. They didn't really attribute this quote to anyone, but Spain's unemployment has dropped from 18.9% in the third quarter from 20% in the previous 3-month period, the lowest rate in 6 years, and welcome news for acting Premier Mariano Rajoy as he looks to begin a second term in office this week. The National Statistics Institute said Thursday that the number of people out of work fell by effectively 254,000 people, July through September, right? So it's this idea that when you don't have somebody in your way, when you cut the regulations of a government, when you cut the taxes of a business, and you get out of the way, well, much like what we've seen here in America with the tax cuts and the regulations cut, thanks to President Trump and company, you see the economy embolden itself. You see it thrive. You see it be successful. And, now that we have this government shutdown, a very small one, I wish that it was them getting out of the way in the same way, but sadly it's not. And they said that's a rather better economic performance than the country had when it had an activist government. Spain's central bank expects the country to expand by 3.2% this year, among the most robust growth rates in Europe, which has created more jobs. So getting out of the way is a good thing, right? So if you guys have ever had the argument against libertarians that the government is needed for this market, for that market, for this idea, for that idea, you might be better off just saying, hey, let's have more people have a say in this. Let's have more people have an idea on this and let the markets reign. That Spain probably lets the public take out the trash. Oh, let's hope so. We are not comparing Spain to U.S. economically. We are comparing the ideas. We're comparing the ideas between an activist and a not activist. So that you have a gross conceptual error in the way that this discussion is being premised. But so this entire idea has been used in Spain, right? Because they had a system in where I think it was the election. This was Belgium. I'm sorry. So in Belgium, they had a crisis there, and where they had a bunch of different parties, and none of them were able to get enough of a majority in order to rule effectively, and they basically didn't have a government either for a while. And the results of these things is that when you have nobody enforcing these arbitrary rules or arbitrary laws in order to govern how commerce occurs, and you allow people to transact as they see fit without subsidies or excess taxation, you're going to see the market become more stable, as well as you're going to see more interactions. It's only a much more beautiful thing. And I hope that as time goes on, more people will wake up to this idea and really start looking into Austrian economics, because that's where the beautiful part of economics can really thrive, is when you have clear competition, not competition between having one private entity and the government, but having multiple. Deplorable, welcome in. But having multiple different entities competing in order to buy your dollar with services and goods, it would only be a better world. I realize I ran through all of these quite quickly. So we covered last time that I was on with you guys, we were covering Steve King, Representative Steve King. And if you guys don't recall what the controversy came about, it was the New York Times wrote an article quoting him, and he basically said white supremacy, white nationalism, Western civilization, when did these terms become so controversial? I think that was the exact quote, actually. If I got that right, I'm going to be happy. White nationalist, white supremacist, so I got those two flipped. Western civilization, how did that language become so offensive? My bad. I was close. Do I at least get a half a cookie for that one? Can I get a half a cookie? But nonetheless, there are many Republican leaders, all the way up to Mitch McConnell, who have come out in staunch aggression against his terms, against what he had utilized, and basically accepting that he is a racist for what he said, and they're working towards censorship. And censorship is the second worst thing that you can do to a sitting House member, and it would be utilized whenever a member of the House has disgraced the House, and the only worst thing that you could do is obviously impeachment, remove them entirely. So they're looking to replace him on all the boards that he's sitting on. I'm still going to stand by my comments from last time and think that, Steve King is just not a very eloquent speaker by any means. He said a lot of stupid stuff. But I think when if you can read his text in different ways, you can read all of these things. And certainly with that quote, it is very difficult to think that he said that and it's a good way. But certainly when you look at the rhetoric across this nation, right? Obviously, white nationalists and white supremacists is an offensive term. It is something that no one is proud about. I mean, sure, I've met some people that are proud that they're white nationalists or white supremacists, and I've been on their shows and debated them on that. But it's not a profound thing. But oftentimes what we've seen is that the left will try to conflate Western civilization with white nationalism or with white supremacy or white whatever. And they try to take that, try to destroy Western civilization. We've seen where a lot of democratic policies and views have been staunchly against Western civilization and its foundings, its principles, its virtues, and its beliefs. So I can understand, I can try to understand through the mangled view of somebody who can't speak properly, how he may not have tried to say not to try to say that white nationalism or white supremacy shouldn't be considered offensive, but it's a stretch at best. And certainly I don't know his motive. We all don't know his motive. We can use context clues. We can use other pieces of evidence and think that he is a white supremacist, a white nationalist, or whatever. And you're free to form your own opinion, of course. But it may look like he may be getting removed and probably be getting voted out in the future. This has also spur up a lot of Republicans to call out the Democrats. If we're going to do this against our people, are you willing to do it against your own? Now, this is something that I've been talking about for a while. I'm like, if you want to call people out for being racist, you have to call out your own side. You have to show that you are actually serious about this. If you're not serious about this, then you'll continue to finger point. And what we've seen in the past is that the left and the right both are only willing to point across the aisle, and no one has been serious about these things. So they're going after the likes of Maxine Waters, of Nancy Pelosi, of anyone who has willingly gone out and hung out and affiliated with the likes of the anti-Semites, such as Louis Farrakhan. So when they're willing to have these open relationships with people like that, and they want to call them out on it and say, are you guys going to stand up against anti-Semitism? I can't ever say that word. Whatever. You guys know what I'm saying. And so far, the response has been nil. It's been nothing. So it's amazing that the left is willing to be open against a specific race. But the Republican Party is at least taking a stance against one guy that is being viewed as a white nationalist. He has since then said that he is not a white nationalist, not a white supremacist. He is a nationalist, and we had that discussion before. And he even said, look, the Nazis were terrible for killing 6 million innocent Jews. So which all in itself, right? There could be layers within that, right? It's just like 6 million innocent Jews. Like, shouldn't it just be Jews? Like, are you saying that there's criminal Jews that are worthy of it? Right? You can get into the nuance certainly, but it can either be malice or ignorance, and I'm gonna say there's probably ignorance. He's backed into a corner and he doesn't know how to speak. It's not a good position for anyone, seriously. But all right, so we got a little bit of time. So this is an article from Boogie Bumper himself. If you guys haven't been following Boogie Bumper, you guys you'll make your life a lot better by following him for sure. This is Trump's shutdown trap, and I just want to read it to you guys. It gives you guys a nice thought process. It gives you guys some historical things in here just to think about, and it's all revolving around this government shutdown. Right, that's been a big theme for tonight, obviously. It starts off. This is by Thomas Lifson. This is on the American Thinker. So, Trump's shutdown trap. Has President Trump suckered Democrats and the deep state into a trap that will enable a radical downsizing of the federal bureaucracy? In only 5 more days of the already longest government shutdown in history, 25 days and counting as of today. This was today. A heretofore obscure threshold will be reached, enabling permanent layoffs of bureaucrats furloughed 30 days or more. Don't believe me that the federal bureaucrats can be laid off? Well, in bureaucraties, a layoff is called a RIF, a reduction in force. And of course it comes with a slew of civil service protections. But if the guidelines are followed, bureaucrats can be laid off as in no more job. It is all explained by Michael Roberts here. A reduction in force is a thoughtful and systematic elimination of positions. For all practical purposes, a government reduction in force is the same thing as a layoff. Organizations must stick to predetermined criteria when sorting out what happens to each employer. They must communicate with employees how and why the decisions are made. In deciding in who stays and who goes, federal agencies must take 4 factors into account. 1. The tenure. 2. The veteran status. 3. Total federal civilian and military service. And 4. Their performance. Agencies cannot use reduction in force procedures to fire bad employees. Disgusting. A lot of procedures must be followed, and merit is the last consideration, or their performance. But based on the criteria above, employees already furloughed can be laid off once they have been furloughed for 30 days or 22 workdays. So it's 30 calendar days or 22 discontinuous workdays. This seems to be what was referenced in an essay written by an unidentified senior Trump official published in the Daily Caller, which vouches for the authenticity of the author and explains that it is protecting him from adverse career consequences should the name be known. I strongly recommend reading the whole thing. The purported senior official makes the case that devotion to process eats up most of the time of federal bureaucrats and is also used by enemies of President Trump's initiatives to stymie the legitimate orders issued by his senior officials. On an average day, roughly 50. Okay, so this is getting into the actual politics of it. On an average day, roughly 15% of the employees around me are exceptional patriots serving their country. I wish I could give competitive salaries to them and to no one else. But 80% feel no pressure to produce results. If they don't feel like doing what they're told, they don't. Why would they? We can't fire them. They avoid attention, plan their weekend, schedule vacation, their second job, their next position. Some do this in the same position for more than a decade. They do nothing that warrants punishment and nothing of external value. That is their workday, errands for the sake of errands, administering, refining, following, collaborating on process. Process is your friend, is what delusional civil servants tell themselves. Even senior officials must gain approval from every rank across their department, other agencies, and work units for basic administrative chores. Then the senior official notes what I've just called the trap. Most of my career colleagues actively work against the president's agenda. This means I typically spend about 15% of my time on the president's agenda and 85% of my time trying to stop the sabotage. And we have no power to get rid of them until the shutdown. Ooh. Those officials who waste my time and stymie the president's initiatives now are not present because they are not categorized as essential. Due to lack of funding, many federal agencies are now operating more effectively from the top down on a fraction of their workforce, with only select essential personnel serving national security tasks. President Trump can end this abuse. Senior officials can reprioritize during an extended shutdown, focus on valuable results, and weed out the saboteurs. We do not want most of employees to return because we are working better without them. Could you imagine? I work for a lean company. I know how lean you can get better results out of having lean workers, right? You have less workers, they have a higher workload, but you push them, you keep them on the grindstone. They're doing their job. If they don't want to do their job, you cut them, replace them, move on. You make it an efficient business. That's what they're working towards right now. Keep in mind that saboteurs cannot be individually identified and laid off, but they can be included in the layoffs. So you can't individually pick them, but if they're in a slew of layoffs, you can put them in there. If they meet the criteria above in terms of seniority and service, and they must be given 60 days notice. But once they are gone, they are no longer free to obstruct using the process as their friend because they are gone. You can expect lawsuits on every conceivable point, and I suspect the definition of furlough will be one matter of dispute. If this was the plan all along, it would explain why President Trump goaded Chuck and Nancy in his televised meeting with them last year, boasting that he would claim credit for the shutdown. How could they resist a prolonged shutdown when he made it so easy for them to blame him? President Trump has given that he is a disruptor who changes the framework of thinking on major issues by refusing to accept the givens, the assumptions of how things always have been done, and therefore always must be done. So who is the senior official? I don't know, but I think Stephen Miller is the sort of bold thinker who might volunteer to telegraph the strategy just 5 days before the deadline. Give Chuck and Nancy something to think about and probably reject as unthinkable. Then they can't complain that they weren't warned once the trap is sprung. Such a mass reduction in force would be the Trump version of Ronald Reagan firing the air traffic controllers when they went on an illegal strike in 1981. That was completely unexpected by his enemies, vehemently criticized, and successful. Among other benefits, it taught the leaders of the USSR that Ronald Reagan was a man whose threats could not be dismissed as mere rhetoric. If you think that Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, Angela Merkel, and any other foreign leaders would not draw the same conclusion from this massive reduction in force, then you are kidding yourself. My theory may be completely wrong, but I pray that it is not. So that was from the Great Boogie Bumper. I'm glad that he sent that over to me. And once again, that is from the American Thinker. That is Trump Shutdown Trap by Thomas Lifson. Great article. Good talking points in there, good points to think about and understand a little more of the process. I thought it would be good to share that with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys find stuff that you guys want shared on here, feel free to use me as your platform. Drop it off to me, send it to me in a tweet, send it to me in a DM. Find me on personal Facebook page. Find me wherever you want, and let's do this, right? Let's have this conversation. Let's bring this out to the light. I'll happily just read it out there for you guys, or if you want to just add it into a narrative that I've already been broadcasting, right? Let me know how you want to implement it. We'll throw it in there. But nonetheless, right, you guys are always free to call in as always. The number is always down there at the bottom of the screen, 802-671-5328. Why is the Department of Education essential? It shouldn't even be essential because it's not even constitutional, right? There's nothing there. There's no there. For them to say that this is constitutional for the federal government to run a Department of Education. The federal government was never created to enact education. It was never there to control the education. This is grotesquely contrary to the beliefs of what the founders advocated or wanted. So it would be nice to see that be revoked and be removed once again, but they shouldn't be essential. Going back to your question. But nonetheless, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. I appreciate you all for joining in. I hope you guys heard something new. Hopefully you guys got some new insight on things. I will be seeing you guys again here coming up this Friday night. I told you guys on Sunday's show that I would be recording a new show with the great Chris McDonald, the Mac Files. It looks like that show will be coming out on next Monday or Tuesday, so keep your ears and eyes open for that. I will certainly be retweeting it and sharing it out for you guys for easier access. But keep your eyes out for that. It was a great discussion. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a good time. Always grateful to go on anywhere and to be able to speak my truth and have these conversations. So thank you, Chris, for that. Thank you all for coming in tonight. Really, I wouldn't be anything without you guys. And so thank you all. I hope you guys all have a great night. I will see you guys Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I am Mr. Merca, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. Have a good one.